So yeah, I mean in Malaysia this is like the high time of dirty politics. I think it's now, but obviously politics has also have is also also influence. Wah ngantuk. Okay, influence the economic situation as well as management as well as land development. What happened was this morning I ordered coffee, but the person gave me Milo. So yeah, that's not happening. Okay. So, anyways, but I'm okay. I'm okay. So basically, all these things has to be taken into consideration. So there's no one model that fits everyone. Even between states, they could have different models as well. Okay. Even different states in Malaysia. So basically, the literature on land development model have introduced many ways to operate development process and the key components and attributes of that process from different sources of angles of focus. So basically, it depends on what you want, what is your ideology. See, even ideology changes everything. So you have the environment like a setting of what is the direction of the country itself or the state or the local area, whatever, and then they have to decide which land development process model that fits in order for them to have a successful land development. Land development slash property development slash real estate development. Okay, so if you hear these three things, it's pretty much the same in this course. Okay, so authors have argued that models will create for their own specific purpose with different theoretical background and sought for a model that will be applicable to all circumstances and situations for the complex of development process. The thing is, authors here means, I mean, researchers or academicians or people of experts in this land development has tried to come out with just one process. The problem was, for instance, like you have like a company that has their own model. And then another company would have another model, and another company would have their own model. So they have too many models. So what they are trying to do, this authors, is trying to find a common ground between all these small models and make it into a more generic model. But still, generic model also, are many. There are many generic models as well, and that's where the bank of knowledge is. So if you are a developer or you work in a developer's company or you work in a property investment, etc., understanding these models on how land development process works actually would benefit you because you would understand the whole process as well as trying to improve that model in order for your development to be successful. Okay, hold on. I dengar ting tong. Faik Mal ting tong. Okay. Bukan Faik Mal ting tong. Faik Mal is coming in. Okay. So anyways, so practically they have the same situation. Okay. All these models have the same situation. You have a land, you need permission, you build, then you sell, you manage. Yeah, that's pretty much it, right? But of course there's different point of views as well, like the one that I said previously. The environment setting of that particular area depends on not depends, influences the models as well. So there are five main models, which are event sequence model, agency models, equilibrium model, agency structure or structure agency, or institutional model. So if you hear the word structure agency or institutional model, is the same thing. Okay. So basically the theme of all these models that we are trying to discuss today comes from Pat Healy, who is an author and who wrote on this. Okay. Healy wrote it was four main models that was discussed, which is event sequence, agency, structure, and equilibrium. And Healy came out with agency and structure or institutional model, okay, based on the analysis and point of view, etc. And then now there's five models for land development process, okay. So I have actually posted the article that Healy wrote on Spectrum that you can read after this. Okay. So the event sequence or sequential or descriptive model basically describe the phases of development as a series of activities, one after the other. So you have evaluation, preparation, implementation, and then you disposal. Pretty much what I said, right? You have a land, blah, 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 blah. And if you remember in BIE 1005, we've also talked about a property development process, and this was one of it. You have an initiation stage where you evaluate, etc., etc., and then you have the implementation stage, yada, 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 and so forth. Okay. So it is a flow diagram of activities in the development process in a linear series. So linear means one go, like straightforward, okay, of events manner. So the model focuses on the management of those stages in the development process. So basically, it's a linear process, but there are activities in that linear process. So event sequence also have its advantages as well as disadvantages. So the advantages is that it relates the event of development in a simpler way so that you could understand the activity with each other. Okay, so it's easier to understand that what goes first, what goes next, what needs to be done before the next stage, etc. So it also provides a very clear insight into activities carried out in the development process. Okay, activities linear. Okay, but it also has a few disadvantages, which are the very limited possibilities to show the dynamic aspect of cyclical nature of development. What does this mean? I mean, it doesn't really shows the movement in the activities. It's more like a stated kind of way. Like, this is the activities, this is what you should do. And obviously, some people likes this way, it works for them. Some people want to see the dynamic aspect of it because perhaps they are in a different position to view, a different position to view land development to their interests. Okay. Remember, land is of as on in your own interest, whatever your interest may be, etc. So yeah. Secondly, it isolates land development from the rest of built environment development. And they also do not consider other factors like policy, financing, or what if there's some change. So this is where the dynamic aspects sort of like not there in the model, okay? And there's no specification of actors and interests, which is another problem, right? Because, like I said previously, land has many interests. So it depends on who's looking at it and whose interest is at it, so that it can be modeled, not model, it can be implemented that way. So for instance, like if you are a property investor who wants to invest in a land development, you would want to know like what happened if there's a pandemic, in the second year, what are you going to do? So through this event sequence model, it seems like nothing's going to happen. So yeah, so that is the disadvantages. So the next model is agency model, which is a behavioral and decision making. So agency actually refers to like end users or actors or whoever it might be. So agency are oftenly associated with people, person, because it behavior and decision, right? So agency model portrays the actors and their roles, decisions, relations, and interests takes into the control in development. Okay, so it focuses on the actors in the development process and their relationships. And this is important as well because who's gonna do all this development? People. Okay, so hence that's why the model is called agency model. And this model was actually developed by academics seeking to describe the development process from a behavioral point of view and also an institutional point of view. Okay? Because you can actually solve a lot of things just by looking at the people itself who are involved in the land development. Okay? So it is categorized in two, which are individualistic, which sees the actor as independent individuals in development stages. Sebentar. For example, in the land conversion process, which reflects the transition from rural land to urban, and it shows like different stages and how does the actors participate in decision making, etc. Okay. The second part is interactive. So it gives you the information on the stage of development, event description, and related decision actors, and also possible finance sources. So it's more dynamic, you could say. Yeah, there's a lot of movement in this model, but of course there are some advantages and disadvantages of the model. So one of the advantages is that it relates the actors, so you could understand like how do they work together, a great team make the work a dream. No, no, no. A good team is man, sel-sel hubung tidak berhubung ni. Okay, anyways, it basically relates between developer and landowners and planners as well, and they really want to see the relationship between all these actors in property development, because they believe and their point of view is that when all these actors have good relationship, the land development process will be a successful one. Okay, so instead of looking into event sequence previously, like we talked about, this looks into the actors. Agency looks into the actors, okay, the people. So they could identify, what are the opportunity, development opportunity, identification, initiation, etc. And apart from that, actors even relation, okay, with which accommodates parallel events with the pair. Okay, this is the one that I said there is some dynamic because it's a relationship. So whatever could happen, then they could, pretty much tweak out the model and solve it within itself. Okay, you can look at model like the globe and things happening inside. It's something like that. Okay. So interest of agents linked to social relations, mode of production, and social political system, which works, right? Remember we said like, it's the environment setting of the development itself. Politics are involved, social stuff. I mean, social issues are influenced also towards the development, etc. Right? So the three disadvantages is that one, it lacks dynamic or perspective or potential that drive the development. See, so many problems. We had the dynamic between the actors, but now there's a lack of dynamic in terms of the drive of the development, because you're just too focused on the relationships of people. You're not focused on what is happening on the physical development itself. And there's too much attention given to the actors, what are their roles, decisions, and relationship. To some people, this, yes, actors are important. They're supposed to make things work. But if it's too focused on the actors, there's going to be less focus on the development physically itself. So that's going to be a problem. And it also weakens important factor that drive a development, which is the public institution. Remember the environment setting, if it's like government should be there. Okay. So it doesn't bring in the government as an actor. But obviously the development model could be tweaked and and insert public institution as a model. Right? Anyway, so we've talked about two model, event sequence as well as agency model. Now we will talk about structure or a production model. So structure model captures the making of the built environment as not merely a physical process, but also a socio-economic good product and process. Okay, so it looks structurally like, hey, what do we need? In a development, this is what we should look at. This is the process. Well, the process should be, within this structure of economy, technology, etc. And this model accommodates that institutional and other social agents within the system. So yeah, okay, they basically focuses on organizing the relationship of the process, and also it's dynamic because you include social relations, legal framework, financial arrangement. You have different types of buildings. Social agents are defined by the economic relations to developers. So basically, structure model is like an extension of an agency model. Remember, agency model just looks into their relationship, because in that model they believe that whatever that happens between the relationship of the actors could make it or break it with for the development. But structure took that into consideration, but added that you need this framework, you need to put in financial arrangement, you need to know all these other things like public institutional within the model. Okay, so that's great. So the advantages is that everything in the process can be analyzed in order to produce the built environment, and it also links the state, construction, and finance, and depicts the relationship as well. So we started with event sequence, which pretty much tells you that this is what, and this is the activity, but there's no dynamic. And then the agency model came in, and it's all about relationships, focusing on the actors, and there is some dynamic, but it lacks that focus on a different perspective, which is where does the government comes in. And then you have the structure model that puts in all this and said, okay, we'll put in the government in the legal framework, etc., etc. Okay, so seems good, right? There is any disadvantages as well, but actually just one, which is it is a capitalist economy view. So it doesn't work for everybody. If you're not in a capitalist country, then it doesn't work. So that's just the disadvantages. And then therefore came the equilibrium model. So equilibrium model explains land development based on demand and supply, right? So the model assumes that demand is a driving factor for land development, where they use a market survey motivated model. So that's why you have to do market survey, etc. Whereas the development activity supply is structured by economic signals about effective demand as reflected in their rents, yields, etc. So it's like the balance, right? Equilibrium means balance. You balance the demand and the supply. But does it really work? It hasn't worked so far for Malaysia in terms of the affordable housing overhang, right? Because too many supply. First there was demand, and there was not enough supply, and then there's like so many supply, and then there's no demand. So yeah, hold on. Oh, macam mana nak puasa minggu depan ni? Sekejap I'm back. Okay. Anyways, selingan, advertisement. Basically, next semester, you guys are not coming back, right? You guys are going to go for your LI. Yeah. But anyways, your juniors are going to come back, and I don't have to talk to myself anymore. It feels like talking to myself, this online class. But it's good to see faces now. So, oh no, in October. Yeah. Allah. See, when I hear bloops, I can't even read. I so sad. Siapa ni? Chua. Why? Yeah, okay. So anyways, where were we? Equilibrium model. Okay. It's easy to get lost in in various types of model. Very easy, because obviously, as I explained it seems like, oh, this model is quite easy to understand, but the idea and how it came about and the arguments that the authors made is pretty much heavy, which you are going to have the privilege of reading soon on Spectrum. Okay. Anyways, so the advantages of the equilibrium model is that it's useful for analyzing standard types of development. So it's easier in a sense of you could monitor a linear type of project, I guess. Okay. And it's not dominated by a few large actors, which means that you don't look into actors anymore in terms of equilibrium. You looked into the product itself. Okay, so it has that business like focus as well. Like, okay, I mean, people who are involved are important, yeah, but in equilibrium model, it's about the product itself. So is it doing well? Is it not doing well? Where is the shortage? Where is the surplus, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so so it has the advantages because of that focus that you could give. Okay, in terms of the product itself, to make sure that it's successful. Okay, so there are a few disadvantages, and one is that it does not address form of demand, like user or investor, non-economic interest. So this is the relationship part, right? That the equilibrium model doesn't look into. They just want to look into the product itself. Okay, and there's no consideration for the complex nature of development process, because basically they are really very much business minded kind of model, because they're like, okay, if it's not enough, we build some more. If it's, too many, we stop building. So, it's kind of like that. I know I make it sound like so easy, but it's very heavy actually in terms of how they came up with the equilibrium model. Okay, and also there are more time to spend to implement development decision, right? More time, because then you go like, oh, wait, it's already 2020, we have to, wait for what's going to happen, or wait, we're going to wait for, the report has not come out yet. Oh, by the way, the market report just came out yesterday, I think, last 2 days ago, for 2020. So market people will want to read that report first, right? So, it's going to make it late. No, it's going to make it harder to make decision, because they need to have more time spent in order to read the market, etc. Okay, from all these four models, which were event sequence, agency, structure, equilibrium, came a model that he argued is going to solve many things, and it's termed as institutional model. And it is actually based on the review of these four previous models, okay, which are sequence model, agency model, structure model, and equilibrium model. See, in my head, I'm imagining you guys are saying it with me. Okay, so the idea was to offer a model that shows the detailed events, agents involved, and the different process. So basically, Healy's a person, okay, who came out with this model, who did not merge. I think found the loopholes in all the models and established this model. Okay, so it focuses on land development process. It's viewed as not only the physical process, but also as a social process, uh, by economic interest. So it has so much in this model, because it's trying to combine all four models, because there are good models. Okay, these four models are good models, but he wanted to have a model that fits for everyone. So the idea came from these four models, and whatever loopholes that the models have, it was filled in in this institutional model. Okay, so basically this is how it looks like. Okay, you have structure, actors, events, site, etc. And these are the interaction between the structures and agency, as they merge in this model. Okay, and it describes the processes of events and the actor who carry out the process. It identifies the actor's role and populations among them. It assesses strategies and interests relative to resources, roles, and ideas, and also describe relationship between resources, roles, idea with wider society. So you see, you remember all the disadvantages of other models, that some say it was not dynamic, some say it doesn't take into the interests of other people, some say it's just a capitalist view. So this model tries to encapsulate everything and explain it in one. So what are the advantages is that this model integrates the characteristic of four previous model, and it places more emphasis on events, actor relations, and also environment, socio-economic, political context, because you have to include all this in order for you to have a successful model. Does it has a, do you think they have a disadvantages? Not they, sorry, the model itself. Obviously they said no, because they feel that that's the best model. Okay, so anyways, I think that's about it. That's the five models. Oh, it was just half an hour. Anyways, I actually put up more readings for you to read through, because I have actually summarized it for you on what are the models between the five, and I'm going to summarize it again. Event sequence models is a very linear model that has activities and stages. Okay, event sequence, very simple. And then obviously there are some loopholes, like there's no, or some gaps there, because there's no dynamic in the model. So came about agency model, which where the academics was trying to see land development process in terms of relationships of actors. So there are many actors in Property development, we've talked about this last week, right? You guys wrote about like who are the main actors as well on spectrum, correct? Yeah. So agency model talks about those relationships and they feel that from relationship between actors it could bring you to a successful development, right? So thirdly was the structure model. So structure model looks into the gap that agency model didn't have, which is public institution. I mean, where is the government in all this? Governments are involved. You have a king, fine, and where the kings are, no, the kings are not there. It's like Brunei. Remember, Brunei is a monarchy and the king decides everything. Remember, I told you the story that the decision making for land development in Brunei takes a very long time because the king decides everything. So obviously, even though you don't have that many people living in Brunei, I think their population is like about 400,000. But it still takes a long time because only one person is going to decide, right? So yeah, because there's no public institution in the HSC model came the structure model. Because this view of structure model looks into, well, you have to look at who are making the decision, not in the development project, but the country itself, who there should be some legal framework. You should understand, obviously there are laws that you have to abide to, and etc etc. So that is the structure model. So what happened with the structure model is that they feel like, not enough. Okay, there's still loopholes. Because when you focus more in terms of structure and actors, you don't really focus on the product, right? You're the product that you're trying to build are sort of forgotten. So that's why the equilibrium model came, right? So the equilibrium model came because it has to focus on the product that the development is trying to sell. So that's why it's based on the demand and supply. So, but obviously there are also loopholes as well because it takes time to understand the market, market changes, etc., etc. So based on all these four models, Pat Healy said, you know what, I'm gonna, come up with another model. So he came with another model, and it's called the institutional model, which encapsulates all the four models. I mean, Healy understood like what are the advantages and disadvantages, what are the strengths and weaknesses of each model, and came up with the model, which is the institutional model. Okay, so for the readings, I already put it on Spectrum. You can read Healy Land Development Process Part 1, and then there's also Part 2 in order for you to understand the process that was argued, what were the arguments made, what is this land development model like, okay? And also there are other further readings that you can read. I think there's 3 more articles on, I think it was a structure model, institutional model, and also agency model. Okay, so I think that's about it. Look, dengan tangan. Yeah, I found this on PowerPoint slide and I thought, wow, interesting. About heart gitu. So scary though. Yeah, okay. Anyways, I think that's about it. This is on Spectrum. We have exams, right? Is the on land development gonna come up? I mean, land development model? The answer is maybe. Okay. There might be a question on this as well. So, question on land development models. Yeah. I think the question is going to be on actors, land development models. Don't think there's going to be any questions on financial and viability, on project. What else? That's so far what I think. Yeah. So far itu je lah kot then that I have. Okay. So do your further reading. It's good that you read the Healy paper, which is on Spectrum. I think I named it as Healy Land Development Process 1 and Land Development Process 2. Okay. So yeah, I think that's about it. Tomorrow's tutorial, right? 2 p.m. So for tomorrow's tutorial, I'll update on WhatsApp. Okay. I want to do something, but I'll let you know later on WhatsApp. For now, I'm just gonna leave you with more readings because I think during this pandemic, I think we have more time to read. So why not, right? Use this time to read further more. Is there any questions though before I close the class?
No,
No?
doctor.
No question? Okay.
No.
So I hope you're okay. No? All right. So if you're okay, I hope you're okay with the land development process model. I know it might be a bit too much to understand, but I hope I've turned it into like a storytelling kind of lectures that you could try to relate the process and the models, why it's important, because it's knowledge. Okay, one thing, because it's knowledge, and having this theoretical knowledge also will help in your practical work later in life. Okay, so if there's no more question, I'm going to close the class now, but I want you to continue reading on Healy's paper, and I'll update you guys on tutorial tomorrow. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining this short and sweet class, and I'll see you guys either tomorrow or next week. Okay, so take care. Goodbye.